Hi, I'm Gokula Mishra. I'm Vice President of Data Science and AI/ML at Direct Supply. And prior to this, I was Chief Data Analytics Officer with Dynamic Data Analytics. And I worked for various organizations like McDonald's, Oracle, Sears, HP, TransUnion, and Booz Allen. Today's topic is customer data management. So I'll spend some time talking about how to organize customer data and how to manage customer data. There are 10 key components to customer data management. I first start with the customer data stitching, security, privacy, and synthetic data, data integration, internal and external, integration with consuming apps, total cost of ownership, platform and architecture, lifecycle management, data quality and governance, partners and tools, and customer data monetization. Now, each one of these topics can take a long time just by itself. What my goal today is to give you an overview of these 10 key components of customer data management. Let's start with customer data stitching. Customer data stitching, the reason I use the stitching is because customer data comes from many different sources. And each of the sources bring a different viewpoint of the customer, whether it's a first-party data, second-party data, third-party data. And so we bring together customer data in many different ways, and that's why I call it stitching. So the stitching can be either deterministic, where two sources or more sources of data, the customer ID is present, and lo and behold, they all match. And so that we would call deterministic stitching of customer data records. But also it is possible so that we kind of stitch data probabilistically. And so just keep an eye towards how many customer data, if we just use deterministic, we will ignore. And so we need to figure out a way to include all customer data so that we can stitch it. So that's why the primary, secondary, tertiary data stitching, as well as rules for customer data stitching, is very important. The second, the other aspects of customer data stitching definitely is around encryption. And one of the key aspects of encryption is that it does impact how you stitch your data. So you need to pay attention whether the keys are encrypted or not encrypted. And if it is encrypted, that's a encryption key that you can manage, or the platform that you design can manage. And in some cases, we'll need to manage also anonymization with the customer data stitching process. And it all depends on various data sources that we'll get. So just, it is very, very special and specific to customer data integration. The second critical aspect with all the data laws that are there is that we need to keep the customer data secure and private, and really pay attention to the opt-in, opt-out that the customers have provided in each of the data sources. And depending on what it is, we need to, by design, right from the beginning, incorporate security as well as privacy of customer data. One of the other things that you should pay attention to is how do you actually unwind the customer data using lineage. It will be important primarily around privacy, because some customers might actually, under the data laws, whether it's GDPR or CCPA or many others coming, they might want you to ignore their data, which means how can you take out their data if you have maintained the lineage? That becomes easier. The other new emerging area that you need to pay attention to is that there are many different applications where using customer data might be very, very helpful, and you may not be able to use them. And so synthetic data kind of comes into your aid, where the synthetic data really represents all the data relationship that you'll find in the original data. So it allows you, without using the real customer ID, the real customer name, and other private data fields, you still preserve the data for analytics. Data integration is one of the very complicated aspects of customer data management. When you're integrating data, you need to pay attention to all the internal data sources that you are bringing the customer data from. But also you need to share data and also request data from external partners. So there you need to manage many different IDs, many different keys, many different encryption mechanisms. So you really need to pay attention right from the beginning. The other aspect that you need to pay attention to would be whether it's a batch versus real time. The real time data integration is a little tricky because in real time you are stitching the data as well as you're paying attention to the security and privacy and many other aspects of the customer data. You don't have time to react to it. So design for the real-time data integration for customer data is going to be a little different than if you are doing it through batch. The last thing I'll touch on the data integration side, which basically around this whole concept of are you doing a full refresh when you update the customer data versus are you doing change data capture? Each one has its own nuances. As long as you determine the right technique to use for each of the data source, you need to pay attention to that, which technique makes sense for which data source. Then the integration with apps. So here, once you have done the customer data, you have brought all the customer data together, you'll be integrating with different consuming apps. So the BI reporting type of data integration is going to be different than deeper analytics and AI ML type of data integration. You may need to also integrate this data back to the CRM system. So the CRM system, as you can see, along with many other systems, is going to be a source of data for customer data platform, as well as a consumer of data from the customer data platform. So you need to pay attention to how you integrate data with CRM. And definitely, either you share through APIs or build data services to share the customer data with other apps. Here, the customer data stitching becomes very important because some data integration might require you to use the deterministic matching and use that to supply the data through the API or services. Or some applications might actually be okay in saying that, hey, if the data matches and with the confidence factor of 60%, I'm comfortable getting that data. So, make provisions for that type of integration with apps. Around total cost of ownership, there are some obvious ones. What is the hardware cost? What is the cloud run cost? What is the software? There is nuance on there, whether it's a license cost or per transaction cost. Make sure you're clear on that, and all the resources that will be needed for the platform and managing the customer data, any consulting costs that you're going to have upfront as well as on an ongoing basis, maintenance data. And don't forget, if external data is a key part of your customer data platform, then that will contribute to your total cost of ownership as well. Next, we move on to platform and architecture. One thing that I strongly advise is that make sure that you make the architecture very modular, design in multiple layers, and integration between multiple layers. Make sure that these are very loosely coupled. and that will help you not only in scaling different layers. What I mean by layers is, you're going to have a layer where you're going to land all the raw data. Then you're going to have a layer where you might be encrypting everything into a single encryption key, or doing some of the data stitching to certain levels. You might have another layer where you're aggregating data to different shapes, and et cetera, et cetera. So all of these layers, design them carefully, because at some points you're going to have to change one layer, so that if you design it properly, it should not impact all the other layers around it. Also pay attention to batch and real-time needs of real-time end data coming in, as well as real-time data going out. Each one will have its own nuances, and as its data is coming in and out through various mechanisms, you need to figure out how you're going to secure the data and ensure the privacy. If you're a global company, obviously, designing your customer data platform for local versus global needs is going to be critical. And I think leveraging the architecture in such a way that, if you can achieve 70 to 80% common architecture across multiple countries, customer data platform, that's a big achievement by itself. But that'll help you a lot in maintaining a good, solid platform and architecture that you can leverage for multiple countries. Customer data lifecycle management. Think about it as customer data being managed, what I call birth to death concept. So birth will be a new customer data record showing up, and then you keep adding to it, build it out in many different ways. You're stitching it with multiple data sources, and at some point you have to put in the deletion and retirement rules, so that you are continuously taking data out from your customer data platform. Also make sure that you have provisions to manage multiples. What I mean by that is, you'll have data repositories that are duplicates, as well as there are data repositories that are not duplicates, but they are silos or distributed in multiple places. So making sure different versioning and where all these data sources are is going to be critical for you to manage the life cycle. Having clear ownership and usage rights understanding and documented and managed will really, right from the beginning, help you tremendously. As the usage of customer data proliferates, then you can control the data properly. And obviously, I don't have to tell you, there are multiple data laws that exist today, such as CCPA and GDPR, but there are many more coming. And so design it in such a way that new data laws can be applied during the lifecycle management. Data quality and governance, my favorite topic. Quality in my definition is data that is fit for business purpose. So there is in my mind, there is no such thing as perfect data quality. And some business purpose data quality definition might be acceptable. The same data may not be acceptable for another business purpose. Generally, anything to do with finance, the data needs to be really spick and span and very high quality data, otherwise they will not accept it. Whereas, for example, if you're using for marketing, there is leeway for using data quality that's less than 100%. And generally, I describe data quality in three kind of buckets. Structurally, data quality should be good. Content-wise, data quality should be good. And in context, which is really when you are combining data from multiple sources, it is still good in the context. Governance process is making sure that we keep the data quality the way it is, and put in checks and balances, so that we understand when the data quality is really getting out of the boundaries. And so Governance process itself can take a long time to discuss all the nuances, but I must say that you must have a data governance process for a customer data platform. Uh, do have a steering group, because you will not be able to resolve, for example, who owns what data, who has what rights to what data, but also the definition of data quality, the definition of business rules, et cetera, when to retire the data. And I think creating a steering group really helps bring clarity and alignment and decision-making process, and create a community of practice around customer data, so that you are able to leverage the knowledge and insights that many of the users of customer data have, and bring it all together through a community of practice will help you tremendously. Partners and tools. Some of the obvious things, do check the track record. Absolutely, I would check the references. You'll never ever imagine some of the surprises I have found by checking the references. Focus on your needs and not what the partner or partner vendor is telling you need. Really, you should know what you need. So having a clear definition of what your needs are is going to help you. Make sure there is a flexible cost structure that allows you to experiment and grow over time. Work with vendors that you feel that would be better for longer term partnership and relationship, and they'll bring stability to your partner relationship, as well as how they support their tools. And last but not the least, but very important topic, which is how do you do all of these things, the 9 things that I talked about, and that is the end goal, which is how do I monetize customer data? I have mentioned some of the obvious ones. Really, if you have a good customer data platform, you could monetize through personalization of your products and services to your customers, give them what they really want, which means you really need to understand your customers very, very well, and create a very loyal customer base, so drive loyalty. Definitely branding is very, very critical, and that will create more and more new customers if your loyalty and branding is solid. Understanding customer journey will help you not only understand what your customers like and dislike, but also understanding customer journey will help you come up with new products and services that will add more revenue to your bottom line. And predicting and looking for leading indicators is another benefit of having a solid customer data platform. Those are the 10 key components of customer data management. And if you have any questions, please bring it up during Q&A session. Thank you.